Hi my lovely creatives, my name is Irene and I'm an art teacher and illustrator, and I teach people from all over the world how to draw and paint and how to find their own creative self. In today's video I'm going to teach you how to draw realistic fur in color pencils, and it's much easier than you think. I believe that anyone can draw, so I encourage you to join in, grab yourself some pencils and let's get creative. We are going to draw this corgi, and I'm going to break down my process step by step and explain to you exactly what my techniques are for drawing in color pencil. So let's turn the camera around and let's get started. I started my drawing today with a sketch. So you can see I made a light sketch. I used an eraser to take all the extra graphite off my paper. And I'm going to get started with a really light green color. So when I look at this corgi, there's quite a lot of light colors in the fur. So I'm using this cream color to create the lightest colors for the highlights. It is very important to spend some time on your sketch and make sure that you're happy with the proportions. If your sketch doesn't feel quite right yet, don't worry about starting with color yet. You can always make your sketch again or try another time, or even trace your sketch. I tend to not trace my sketch. I like to sketch freehand. It's just something that I get a lot of joy out of. But it's very important that the proportions are right and that you have a good feel about the sketch, because otherwise you spend all this time on creating a beautiful drawing and layering up all these realistic colors. And then if the proportion is off, then your drawing will still not look right. And although I'm a big believer in not being a perfectionist and creating drawings that are fun, if you really want to go for realism, you have to make sure that your sketch is right. After adding in these light layers, I started to use a dark pencil to add in some of the main shapes. I'm using a dark grey here. And I really make sure that I don't put too much pressure on my pencil. I want to work from light to dark. And what I'm doing is basically adding in the base colors on each of these areas. So I've picked this reddish brown. It's a very warm sort of orange reddish brown color. And I am going to start layering some of those colors onto the reddish brown areas of the corgi. This is a red corgi. And I make sure that I use the strokes in the directions of the hair already, but I'm not too worried about creating the actual hair texture yet. I'm just layering up some of the colors and just taking it easy, adding a little bit of base colors, and I'm just going over those white areas if I need to, knowing that I can use my eraser to create highlights back in, or scrape some of the pencil off to create highlights. This is all about base colors. You can see I'm slowly moving from the left to the right of the picture, and I don't always do that, but today that was my approach, and I'm adding in the main shape of the right eye, the right on the paper. And I'm using that same color as I did for the left, but I'm using a very light touch. I don't want this eye to be really dark. I want to be able to change some of the shape if I need to. These are just the sort of soft, the darkest outside colors, but in a really soft way. So you can see I'm shading that a little bit. I just want to make sure that the shape of the eye feels right, because it's such a prominent shape in the drawing that I really want to focus and make sure that it feels right. So the shape and the location of the eye need to be in the right place. The way the eye is being drawn really tells a lot about the facial expression and the emotions that you can read in this dog's face. If the eye has too much eye white, the dog might look really scared. If the eye is too small, it might look a little bit off. So I really need to make sure that I spend a bit of time on doing this. And I know this is a class about fur, but I just wanted to highlight that the eye is very important, more important than the fur, I would say. I am adding in more colors into the fur, so I'm using a very sharp pencil, and with the tip of my pencil I add tiny strokes in the direction of the fur. And this is something that you can adjust depending on what type of fur you are creating. Because sometimes you have long hairs or short hairs. Long hairs often clump together in larger shapes instead of having like a more even sort of texture that the shorter fur has. So you need to adjust the strokes that you're making to the type of fur. I'm going to go all over that corgi with my different colors, just adding in like really soft strokes of fur, slowly building up the colors. I'm using this warm brown and some of the cream color, some of the dark grey color, just to create a slightly more fuller tone of color and slowly building up that fur. You can see I'm going here around the edge. I'm using quite short strokes here for most of the dog's coat because the fur is quite short. And I'm making sure that I also add in enough of the lighter cream color. I often jump around a little bit on my drawings, so I decided to add in the nose a bit more precise. That way I keep a clear overview of what I'm doing. So I'm adding in some short hairs here on the dog's moustache. There's some really fine, gentle hairs there. I know a lot of people here on YouTube really divide their drawings into clear sections and then finish a section completely before they move on. This is not usually my technique. Everyone works different, right? I like to jump around on my drawings a little bit. I'm starting to add base colors to the areas where I've not been yet, to the tongue, inside of the mouth, a little bit of shadow there as well, and the neck. So the areas where I've not added any color pencil yet. I'll play a little bit of music for you, and then I'll be back when I start going to draw on the fur again. There we go, back to the fur. I'm starting to really layer my colors on the fur. So I'm using my dark pencils to add in these little shadows, some short strokes and some long strokes. And I'm really going all over the dog to decide what type of fur is on each section. I'm also keeping in mind where the shadows are. So for example, that eyebrow, that sort of shape above the eye, above the eye socket, is much lighter and there's some shadows behind it. Then here on the neck, the fur is much longer and a bit more sort of wavy, so I make sure that my strokes are longer there. And that way I look at each section and adjust the strokes that I'm making to the type of fur that I'm creating. So you can see I'm holding my pencil very light. I'm not putting lots of pressure on it. I'm really building it up slowly. I want there to be a depth in that fur, so multiple layers, and the sense that you can sort of put your hands in it and that you can ruffle the fur, like that it's a bit more three-dimensional than just one flat layer. So I'm slowly making it a bit darker and a bit fuller of color. Yeah, I'm just really taking my time for it. There's absolutely no rush, and you cannot rush the process. You have to just ease in and enjoy it and take your time for a drawing like this. I slowly start to feel more and more comfortable about the outcome of this drawing. And that's a really nice feeling. When you first start with your sketch, you never really know what's going to happen. The shape still has to sort of crystallize. You still have to visualize what it's going to look like. And there's a lot of uncertainties at that point. At this stage in the drawing, I know what my dog is going to look like. I get a sense of where I want to go with the drawing, how dark I want to go or how intense I want the colors to be. And that makes it much easier to start layering the colors. I'm still taking my time for it, but I just know what my sort of goal is, what the outcome is of where I want to go. So I am just adding layers and layers until I'm happy with the color. And I'm not doing any burnishing today. I'm using textured paper, and I want the texture of the paper to shine through the drawing a little bit. I want it to look like a hand drawing. This is a specific look. If I would work on smooth paper, maybe I would have created something that was much more smooth looking and much more blended, and a different sort of type of style. But because I'm using watercolor paper, this is cold pressed watercolor paper with a lot of texture, you can really see the texture shine through the drawing. It's a look that I really enjoy. I quite often use textured paper for my color pencil drawings. I think there's a certain softness that it gives to the drawing, a certain handmade feel. So I'm going to just go over that fur, add longer strokes in the areas where the hair is flowy, and short strokes in the areas where the hair is shorter. And make sure I don't forget the edges, because it's not a harsh line where the white goes over into the darker parts of the fur with a sharp line. There is a soft gradient. The white hairs sort of go over the light hairs a little bit, and the dark hairs go over the light hairs a bit, and it mixes up a bit on these edges. So I want to make sure that I show that as well. At this stage, I just keep layering all my colors until I'm very happy with the outcome. And sometimes I'm a little bit adventurous with my color. I might add in a little bit of blue or green or yellow. I'm using this white gel pen to add in the whiskers of the dog. The dog has these really white hairs, these long whiskers, and I could use a craft knife to add those in, but I'm using a white highlighter, white gel pen for this today. There's a few little white highlights on the nose. See some little freckles. I'm being very gentle here. I don't want to go in too intense. Maybe a little highlight in the eye as well. Just a little twinkle. Some long hairs here in the ear that go over that dark section. These are just the finishing touches. The most important thing when you draw a realistic animal is the values of your color, more than having the exact perfect color. So I use, make sure that my darks are dark enough and my lights are light enough. And adding a little bit of a highlight in can help with that. At this stage, my drawing was practically finished, but I decided I wanted to add a little bit more to it and push myself a little bit further. So I decided to add a background. There we go. So in the background, I'm using my colors much fuller and much more intense, and I really enjoy the movement of these shapes, these splashes, or these shapes, and they really show the joyfulness of this dog. I think I just felt like the picture needed a little bit more of Irene personality, so there I went. That also inspired me to just add in slightly darker colors here and there. So even though my drawing was finished, I decided to just add a little pop of color in some places, just to balance things out. But there we go, the drawing is finished. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If there's any specific topics that you want to learn about, let me know, because I'm always happy to take them into consideration. I share art videos every Monday and every Friday every week, so make sure you subscribe. I love to see you in my next video. And I'm just adding a few finishing touches, a little bit of yellow. I love adding yellow to my drawings. So, a bit of a yellow glow is my signature move at the moment. I really believe that every person is creative and that everyone can draw. And with this channel, I'm on a mission to prove this and teach everyone in the world to make beautiful drawings in color pencil and paintings in watercolor. So make sure you subscribe, I will see you at the end of the week. And yeah, thank you so much. Hope you have a lovely day and I'll see you soon.